Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Bruce Serbin, author of 30 Reasons the Media is Ignoring You. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
You ready to get started?
I'm ready.
All right, question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
You know, I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give to a first-time author is to have patience. You know, writing a book is, as you know, a very involved process. And I think back to when I was writing my book, and, you know, I thought it was going to be easy, quite honestly, because I'm a writer, right? I started out in TV news writing anchor scripts, and I'm a publicist now, so I write for my clients all the time. And I thought, well, this is going to be easy. I write all the time, but it really wasn't, and I was getting really impatient with myself, and I think, you know, on top of that, I was seeing these ads for, you know, these programs like, you know, write your book in 30 days, and I'm sitting there struggling for days on end, you know, trying to come up with the words and beating myself up, and I think really it was just to have patience with myself, you know, slow down and realize that it's okay to go at my own pace. And you know, I would also encourage people, you know, if you've never done this, like, you know, I hadn't done this before, you know, get a good book coach, a good publishing coach, you know, like yourself, somebody who can kind of mentor you through the process and walk you through the process, because there's just so many little things that come up, so many questions, and it's really a good idea to just, you know, find somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you. And it is always intimidating when you do see different courses and different companies saying, yeah, you can get a book done in 30 days. Well, for a lot of people, that's not always realistic. So for one of my programs, I like to say, hey, you know, we can get it done in 90 days or less. However, if you need more time, it's okay. Because I've had clients who have taken a year to get their book out, and there's nothing wrong with that. You have to be able to be comfortable with your content. Now, my philosophy is, you know, if you can get it done early, that's great. If you can get it done quickly, that's wonderful. But if you need more time, that's okay. Because I think sometimes when you see these types of programs, when they say 30 days or 60 days, I really do think that can be very intimidating.
It can, and you know, it was funny because once I took the pressure off of myself and I said, okay, there's no deadline, no timeline, just, you know, get to it and write when you can and when the words are going to flow. Well, then they started to flow a lot more easily because I wasn't, you know, sitting over myself. Oh, you've got to put, you know, pen to paper and get the words out now. And just everything started to come more naturally when I approached it that way.
Yeah, it's so much more of a natural progression. It's like sometimes you just have to take yourself out of the elements, go for a walk or go for a drive, or just, you know, get out the house or get out the office. And it's just funny how the different ideas and concepts of your book, it'll just come to you and you don't even realize it.
Right, exactly. And it's just, again, you know, when there's not that pressure, it's just so much easier. And you know, and it's funny because sometimes, you know, I started actually keeping, you know, a pen and paper on me, a little note card, you know, everywhere I would go, because then I would have an idea when I wasn't thinking about the book. You know, I could be eating a meal with the family or, you know, wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, oh, I've got this great idea. Let me write it down so I don't miss out on the opportunity.
Yeah, I always say our best friend and our worst enemy is technology. And for me, I always use the Notes app in my iPhone. And that's actually how I did my first book and my other 13 books that I've done overall. Whenever I had an idea or a concept, I would just go into Notes and I just type it in, or I would leave a really quick voice memo. And it's just funny how you can just take so many of those little moments and it can literally turn into a draft potentially, or at least at minimum an outline.
It really can, because then you've got it right there for you. And like you said, you know, you can go back to it. Then, you know, when I'm ready and I have the time to sit down and write, you know, I can look back, oh, this is what I thought of, you know, yesterday or a few hours ago. And it's really a good way to get started and capitalize on those ideas and not overlook things.
Well, let's talk about the publishing process. So what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
For me, it was, I'll never forget this, the day that I actually finished the writing, I'm congratulating myself and giving myself high fives. Like, this was it. I finished my book, but really it was just the beginning. As there's so much more involved that, once you write the book, you're really just getting started, because now you've got to find a good editor. And, I remember with my editor, we did, 3 different drafts, back and forth. And even after that, I was still finding, little typos and mistakes. And then once you get all of that done, it's, finding a good graphics person who can design your book cover. And that person's going to give you, 5 or 6 options to choose from. And then you've got to do the layout and think about selling it and marketing it. So there's just so much involved that I think in the beginning, the hard part is I've got to be so focused on getting the words out and writing it. But, once you finish that, that's when you realize, wow, I really haven't finished. I'm just getting started, because there's so many other things to take into consideration.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Because one of the things I always tell prospective clients, or if I'm doing a live event, is I ask them 2 simple questions. And one, what do you feel is the easiest part about getting your book done? And the answer is always the writing part. That's actually the easy part. The hardest part is going through the publishing process, but especially the editing, the revisions, and the proofreading, because you're right. You always catch those little things. In fact, I'll let you share a little story with you. Over the weekend, my Get Published book. This is the book that's had thousands of downloads. I've given out many paperback copies of it. And what happened? I discovered a mistake. Now, fortunately, it was in the back of the book, but it actually was in the about the author description. Now, the good thing is I have an about the author description in the book, where I'm talking about, this is how you can brand yourself. That description was correct. So fortunately, what I'm thinking is, you know what? They probably just read that. They didn't want to read it a second time, so no one's really caught it. And it was just 3 little words. And it was, I don't know what happened, but there was the words, "he is also," that is just added at the end of one of the paragraphs. And I'm going, oh my goodness. I mean, I was like, wow, this really happened. 13-time best-selling author who has his own publishing company. I'm like, wow, did I really do that? So the great thing was this. Within 1 hour, it was fixed. My formatter for the Kindle version, she made the adjustments. I went in there and fixed the Create Space paperback version. And the great thing was, even if you have those errors, even if you discover them a few months later, like I did, the good thing is you can fix those within the hour. But it's just one of those things where, you have the editing process, then you have the proofreading process, and it's just so easy to miss one little thing.
It really is. And now I guess I don't feel so bad. I was going to tell you, I just was actually reading through my book the other day, and I caught another mistake. And, but to your point, that's what's the beautiful thing about it these days is, it's no longer the days where you've got to, print thousands upon thousands of copies and find places to store them. You can print them on demand. So when you do find those errors, to your point, you can go in and go ahead and fix them. So that is really great.
Yeah, the only thing that sucked was the 70 copies I already paid for. But it's just one of those things where, you have to live what you say. And one of the main themes about this show is we always talk about done is better than perfect. Unfortunately, no one's caught it. It's in the end of the book. But it's just one of those things. It's like, really, all these books later. And that's the thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. And if you do screw it up, big deal. You can go in there, you can fix it, and you can have a new version done within an hour. And that's what I love about this process.
Exactly. And, sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We're going to be extra critical. And the truth is, reality is, people aren't going to catch it. And even if they do, chances are they're probably not going to care and take it, like we're going to take it, because it's our own book.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can't even repeat some of the words I said when I saw that mistake. It was quite the experience, but the bright side was it was able to get fixed. Now, you mentioned your publicist, so this is going to go great into our next question about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
Well, I'll give you 2 things that I've done that have worked really well for me. The first one is any time that I'm meeting with a potential new client, I walk into that meeting, and the very first thing I do when I'm introducing myself is I put a copy of my book down in front of the person, and I tell them, here's a copy of my book, and I want you to have a copy. And it's great because it changes the whole perception of the meeting. It's like, the words always that come out of their mouth are, oh, you wrote a book. And it's like, wow, now all of a sudden I have a reason to pay attention to you because you must be some kind of an expert. You must really know what you're talking about if you could write a whole book on this topic. So that's something that's really helped me. And then, of course, like you mentioned, being a publicist, one of the greatest things is, once you have a book, what people don't realize about a lot of media outlets, especially print, like magazines and online media these days, is they welcome outside contributors, people to contribute guest articles. So if you've got a book, you can pull anywhere from, 500 to 1,000 word excerpts out of your book and turn them into these short standalone articles and then offer them to these magazines or online media sites, online websites to run. And, you get the byline, you get the bio, and it's great. So that's really helped in terms of my own publicity efforts.
Well, let me ask you for a little advice. So for those of us that have publishing books or business books, what different outlets would you recommend that we reach out to so we could repurpose that content into articles?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it's a business book, there's so many, so many great, business, magazines and online sites. Everything from, Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur, Success, Forbes. Obviously, we're naming some of the really big ones, but, you could, there's just so many. And obviously the big ones can be a little bit more challenging to break into, but really, any publicity that you can generate around your book title or your name and just get it out there in the media, again, it all comes back to credibility building. That's really what it's about. We say it's different than like social media or advertising, things that everybody can do. The media is more of that, exclusive club that not everybody is in or taking advantage of. So when you're featured in the media, it really shines that light on you and says, hey, this person is credible, this person is an expert. And it's kind of like writing the book. Like I said, when I put that copy of the book down in front of that prospective client, it sends that message. It's a perception, and it's so powerful. It really, really is.
Is there a way that you suggest that we reach out to people with those magazines? As an editor, or who should we reach out to? And what's the best way to pitch it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing, I'll tell you, the biggest piece of advice I would give people is don't make the focus about you or your book, but focus on the bigger topic at hand. Because what you got to remember about the media, you can't be self-serving. It's the complete opposite of advertising. But if you can tie your expertise into something, that the media is covering, or if you can provide a takeaway or a learning opportunity for that reader or for that viewer, that's how you're going to break into the media. So, if you want to pitch an article, for instance, to an online site, you want to go ahead and reach out to the editor of, Inc.com or Entrepreneur.com. If you're perhaps trying to get more of an interview, get quoted in a story, that's when you put together like a little pitch with some key talking points and just simply pitch the story idea. So it just depends, I think, what you're looking for.
Well, and I think the main thing with both of those is you're establishing authority, and having that book, it makes all the difference. As we know, the word of authority is author.
It makes a huge difference because in the eyes of a journalist, they're looking for experts who can help them, that they can, quote and that can really school their readers on this topic. And when you go to a journalist and you say, oh, I'm the author of, again, it's instant credibility, and it makes a huge difference.
Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
It's funny enough, my favorite book is by he's a good friend of mine. He's been a client for many years, and that's not why it's my favorite book, but it really has helped, turn around my, personally and professionally. It's a book called 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class, and it's by an author by the name of Steve Siebold. And he works in the mental toughness and psychological performance industry. And it's a phenomenal book because I think, unlike a lot of self-help or personal development books that, a lot of them hit on, a lot of the same things, positive thinking and hard work and things like that, which is great. But this is a book that's a little bit different. It really focuses on the thoughts and the habits and behaviors of world-class performers, of winners and top people in their field. And it just really, I think the biggest thing for me is, really helped me look at my own, internal, thought process how I was, in my expectations and my own, emotional reactions to things. And it really, grounded me more in the present and gave me a better realistic, outlook on what I was doing, again, both personally and professionally. And yeah, I would highly recommend that book for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things. People can always talk about working hard or working smart, but I think what most people don't realize is you have to have both.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
Well, for a final question, Bruce, I would like to ask you about your favorite quote. So what is your favorite quote and why?
I've got a couple of them, but I think my favorite one has got to be, it's a great Socrates quote, and it goes like this, be nicer than necessary to everyone you meet, because everyone is fighting some kind of battle. And, I've really seen this firsthand. We've represented just a lot of people, a lot of professionals in the mental health space, psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, social workers. And, what you really learn is, you really can't always judge someone by what you see on the outside. And, so many people battling things like depression, anxiety, addiction, financial trouble, relationship issues. And it really is true, whether we admit it or not, everyone's got, that issue or that fight that they're dealing with that's unique to them. And really, you just got to be nicer than you want to be or necessary to everyone you meet. I think it's really good advice. Again, business standpoint, personally, it's just, I think we'd all be better off if everybody kind of acted that way. But yeah, that's just one that's always stuck with me for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, I agree completely. I'm a big believer in karma. What goes around comes around. You treat people
Absolutely.
well, it's going to come back. And if you don't treat people nicely, that's going to come back too. So it's the great philosophy to go out there and just be kind to everyone. It really does make a big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Bruce, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Sure. They can visit my website at serbinmedia.com. And we just also released a new do-it-yourself publicity program that's housed at attractingmedia.com.
Excellent. Well, Bruce, I want to thank you once again for being a guest on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.